Hello, I'm Trevor Moore, and this is video project number 2. In video project number 2, the biggest difference from the first project is going to be a focus on speed, agility, quickness, and explosiveness. There will also be a component of plyometrics throughout today's training session. So just like the first video assignment, we're going to start today's workout with a warm-up. I'm going to do 3 minutes of a slow, steady pace cycling, and then 5 minutes at a little bit faster of a pace, still not trying to get my heart rate too high. And then I'm going to finish with 2 minutes of a steady pace on the road to work the upper body as well as the legs, because just like the first video assignments workout, this is going to be a full body session. Alright, so to begin in the warm-up, I'm just going to start with 3 minutes of a nice slow pace on the bike. Just keeping it consistent. So the goal with the warm-up is to start to stimulate the cardiorespiratory and metabolic processes that facilitate energy transduction throughout the workout. So just trying to wake the body up here. So as I'm getting to about a minute and a half starting, should be some increased blood flow throughout the body to the active muscles. So in this case, it'll be to my legs right now. Feel my core temperature starting to raise throughout my body. All right, enhancing that blood flow, getting the body a little bit more warm, and then starting the prep for the workout. All right, as I'm reaching that 3 minute mark, I'm gonna up my pace just a little bit. And then at this point, I should be getting some more efficient oxygen delivery at this point in the warm up. And I'm feeling that mental preparedness to do the rest of the workout after. If you feel your heart rate rising a little bit too much or it feels intense, lower your leg speed back down to what you did for the first 3 minutes. just because you're not trying to tire yourself out. All right, last 2 minutes here. Important to focus on your breathing, keeping it nice and controlled. My legs are feeling that burn, so I'm gonna slow it down a little bit. Again, while thinking about my breath. All right, last minute here. My legs are really feeling that burn, so I'm gonna slow it down even more here. Just create a little bit of movement for this last minute. All right, that concludes the majority of our warm-up. I'm gonna finish out with 2 minutes on the rowing machine, very light as I am feeling fatigued from the cycling. Very important if you do feel yourself getting a little bit too fatigued, which is not the goal of warm-up, make that intensity a little bit lower so you're actually getting something good out of it. All right, finishing up the warm-up, I'm gonna do 2 minutes of the row, but very at a light pace. All right, still trying to get those same metabolic enhancements that we did for the legs. All right, and improving the blood flow to now my chest, arms, and my back. pace, so I'm just gonna hold it. Seconds. The warm-up portion for our general warm-up. Now I'm going to be going on to specific warm-up, which will be some dynamic stretches. Okay, the first dynamic stretch is going to be a lunge with an overhead reach. All right, this is going to be really good for the glutes, the quads, the hamstrings, as well as the lats in the back, and then the external obliques. So to start, you're going to be shoulder width apart with your legs parallel to each other. I'm going to start by taking that extended step with my left foot forward. All right, as I get down into my lunge, all right, I want my knee in line with the back foot and my lead knee in line with my front foot. Then I'm gonna reach over with the left arm, hold, take my step forward with the right. After I get into that lunge position, then I'm gonna reach. All right, common mistake is starting that reach too early before actually taking the lunge step. Then I'm going to turn around, same thing going back. Take that lunge, reach, lunge, reach. The next dynamic stretch is going to be the straight leg march. All right, this is primarily also going to hit the glutes and the hamstrings and the legs here. You're going to have that same starting position, shoulder width apart. The first leg to swing is going to be my right leg, and as I'm swinging the right leg up towards my hand, I'm going to get up onto my toes, heel will be off the ground, but my foot is not fully leave. I'm going to do 5 right and then 5 left, alternating with them. So first one, take that step forward, set, left leg, right leg. All right, big thing here is to not use momentum to increase the range of motion. All right, you want to keep it in control, letting your muscles do the work. All right, the next dynamic stretch I'm going to do is going to be for the chest. All right, starting with the feet, shoulder width apart. First action is going to be bringing your arms up in front of your chest. You're going to extend the arms laterally out to your sides. Once you bring the arms back in, right arm is going to go diagonally above my head, the left leg to the hip. Extend that chest out, back to the middle. Now I'm going to go my left arm above my head and then my right arm to the hip. And then I'm going to create this cycle for 10 to 15 repetitions. Again, make sure as you extend the arms, pressing the chest forward. All right, same thing diagonally. Feel my shoulders opening up a little bit as well here. time. All right, the last dynamic stretch I'm going to be doing are going to be hip step outs and hip step ins. These are really going to be good for the hip flexors as well as the hip abductors. So I'm going to do a set of 5, stepping out on both legs, and then a set of 5, stepping in on both legs. So shoulder width apart, you might need your hands on your hips for balance, or an arm out at the side. But you're going to step with that knee up to your chest, extend out, step in. Step out, step in. Next set of 5 for each legs. Now I'm going to be reversing the action, stepping in. So starting with that, extend it out. This time bringing it in towards the body, finishing with the feet in line with the torso. And with that, that concludes the general warm-up, which was cycling and then the 2 minutes of row, followed up by the specific warm-up, doing dynamic stretches, working the parts of the body that I'll be using today throughout our workout. Thank you. Now I'm going on to the main training session, all right, with the 6 different modalities with 2 exercises within each modality. All right, the first modality is going to be body weight, all right. First exercise is going to be push-ups. All 3 variations are going to be examples of plyometric push-ups. So your first one is going to be your standard plyometric push-up. So the biggest thing for plyometric push-ups is actually making sure you're going through the stretch shortening cycle, going through the eccentric phase, amortization, and then the concentric phase. So for your standard plyometric push-up, the eccentric phase would be going into your down position, lowering the elbows towards the ground. Amortization would be that pause, and then your concentric phase would be when you're pressing up, hands come up off the ground, and you're lowering your body weight back to the ground. I will now demonstrate the set of 10 of plyometric push-ups. Again, going through the eccentric phase, amortization, and then the press up with the arms, the concentric phase. So eccentric, amortization, concentric, landing with the elbows bent, pressing it up, back down, up, back down, up, back down, up. All right, the first variation are going to be clap push-ups, very similar to your plyometric push-up. All right, your eccentric phase would be loading down, amortization at pause, and then the concentric phase when you're clapping up. All right, as you land, eccentric, amortization, concentric, and then you're landing. I'm now going to demonstrate my set of 10. So on this first one, I'll walk through it. So eccentric, amortization, eccentric, eccentric, amortization, eccentric. All right, the last variation for the first exercise are going to be depth push-ups. So I'm going to be starting with my hands up on the blocks, in this case my weight plates. As I'm lowering, I'm dropping my hands to the ground. That's going to be the eccentric phase. All right, while I'm down on the ground, with my chest press, amortization, and then on the concentric phase, I'm going to load up, landing with my hands, and then going into the next push-up. So out of the 3 variations, the depth push-ups are definitely the hardest, so I definitely steer away from those from novices or beginners. The second exercise with the bodyweight modality are going to be bench dips. All right. First variation are going to be explosive bench dips. Second variation are going to be plyometric bench dips. And then the last variation is going to be alternating between the explosive bench dip and the plyometric bench dip. So the bench dips will require a bench. I'm going to start in a seated position. All right, I'm going to take an additional step forward with both of my legs. As I do that, I'm going to be planting my palms on top of the bench. After I do that, I'm going to be taking a step forward with my glutes in that seated position. All right, on the eccentric phase, it's going to be slow and controlled, but on the concentric phase, I'm going to press up explosively. Trying to keep your elbows straight back, not pointing them out, but again, going straight behind and explosively pressing yourself up. All right, the first variation for the bench dips are going to be those plyometric bench dips. So you're still going to have the same eccentric phase on the way down. Then there's going to be that amortization period, the pause, and then on the concentric phase, going to press up, landing, going back down to eccentric, amortization, and concentric up. All right, especially if you haven't done these before, it's a good idea to have a mirror handy so you can see where you're going up and then where your hand should be landing on top of the bench. So now I'm going to demonstrate my set of 10. Eccentric, amortization, concentric. And I immediately off of those, I found a greater burn in my triceps than I did just on your regular bench dips. All right, my last variation, I'm gonna be alternating between the explosive bench dip and the plyometric bench dip until I get to a total of 10 reps. So it'll be 5 reps of the explosive and then 5 reps of the plyometric version, but I'm gonna be alternating them until I get to 10. So first one, explosive, second one, plyometric, explosive, plyometric. Okay, so for the second modality, I'm going to be using dumbbells. All right, I'm going to do a series of lunges, some being explosive, some being plyometric, and then a combination of the two. And then I'm going to be following that out with squats that follow that same pattern of explosiveness, plyometric, and then a combination. All right, I'm going to start with some explosive lunges. All right, 5 with the left or right foot forward, and then switching for the other 5 with the other foot forward. So similar to a warm-up with those lunges. All right, taking that step forward, the front knee should be in line with the front foot, and then the back knee should be in line with the foot once you get down into that lunge. All right, on the eccentric phase, it's gonna be slow and in control, and on the concentric phase, I'm gonna explode up, so slow and control, explode, slow and control, explode. After you do your set of 5, you're gonna switch. So that right foot's forward, left foot's back. Same body alignment regardless of foot. And then slow on the eccentric phase, explosive up. All right, first variation are gonna be those plyometric split lunges. So I'm gonna be alternating between left and right in the flight phase where I'm switching legs in the air. So on the way down, that's gonna be your eccentric phase, that landing, that's the amortization phase. And then as you're exploding yourself up into the air, switching legs, that's gonna be the concentric phase. All right, you're starting in that same lunge position. On the way down, that's the eccentric phase, amortization's that pause, and then the concentric phase, exploding up and switching. The last variation is going to be a combination of the explosive lunge as well as the plyometric split lunge. All right, so we're going to be starting with that right or left foot forward. All right, slow on the eccentric phase, pressing up on the concentric phase. The second time, eccentric, amortization. On the concentric phase, I'm switching, going back down, explosive up. Second time, switching. All right, till I get to 5 reps on each leg. For those lunge variations and then going forward to the squats, I would not recommend novice or beginners to go with dumbbells. I would just be using your own body weight because for a lot of these, a lot of balance and coordination is key for them. All right, my second exercise with the dumbbells are gonna be squats. All right, first variation are just gonna be squat jumps with the weights. All right, this is definitely an explosive exercise. I'm not sure if I would classify it as a plyometric. The amortization phase might be a little bit too long to truly get the most out of the stretch shortening cycle, which is essential to plyometrics. So I'm gonna be going down to my 90-degree squat. Again, feet shoulder width apart, the knee should go above the feet as I'm going down. On the way up, explosively jumping, back down, till I get to 10. All right, you want to make sure too on those squats you are hinging from the hip, keeping a somewhat upright position. You don't want to be so far forward over your hips where you're bent all the way down on them, especially with jumping up with dumbbells. For my first variation, all right, on the eccentric phase on the way down, once I'm into that 90-degree squat, I'm going to drop the weights at my side and explosively jump up. All right, getting more of an explosive jump up. Again, with this one, that amortization phase might be a little bit too long to truly classify it as plyometric, but it is definitely an explosive, fast action movement. All right, now I'm gonna demonstrate my set of 10. While I'm dropping them, after I gotta pick them back up, that's definitely gonna take a little bit more time in between each rep. So 90 degrees, drop, explode up, watch your landing area, grabbing the weights. Trying to make it quick. All right, for the last variation, I'm gonna have my lovely girlfriend Serena demonstrate. All right, it's gonna be tuck jumps, which this is gonna be the most plyometric out of the 3. All right, really going through the best stretch shortening cycle. Eccentric phase will be when she's landing, that amortization phase, that short period on the ground, and the concentric phase while she's driving her knees up. So there you can see that eccentric phase with the short amortization while she lands and then concentrically exploding up. All right, now she's gonna demonstrate her set of 10, trying to keep that landing phase as short as possible before going into her next concentric phase. So eccentric down, amortization, and then concentric while she's bringing her knees up. All right, we have the 2.5 pound plate there, but just imagine that it would be a dumbbell for that purpose. All right, the next modality is gonna be boxes. All right, for me, it's gonna be a bench, but just imagine it's a box here. The first exercise I'm gonna be doing with the box or the bench are gonna be depth jumps. So I'm gonna be starting on top of the bench, all right, with either the right or left foot forward. I'm dropping in, landing lightly on my feet, and bouncing up as quickly as I can. All right, on the way down, that's going to be my eccentric phase. Amortization is going to be that slight pause. And on the concentric phase, I'm exploding up as high as I can. So now I'm going to demonstrate my set of 10 of the depth jumps. Again, trying to keep that landing or the amortization phase as quickly as possible before exploding concentrically up. Something you want to make sure you're doing before something off of the box is to make sure you have a firm landing surface, all right, like the ground in a weight room, but you wouldn't want to do it on something too hard like concrete or something too soft like sand. All right, my first variation, I'm going to be doing depth jumps into a broad jump. All right, the rest period in between each reps might not make this a true plyometric exercise, but as I'm dropping down, that's going to be the eccentric phase. Get amortization, and I'm launching it out as far as I can while landing on my feet. All right, when you land the broad jump, you want to lean some of that weight into your glutes. You don't want to be too far up and over, like I just did, I almost fell. You want to have some of that weight at the back end of the posterior chain, so you're not going to fall on your face. All right, I'm now demonstrating my set of 10. After my broad jump, I'm going to try to quickly get back into the next rep as fast as I can. All right, my last variation is going to be a depth jump into a box jump. So still starting with that right or left foot forward on the eccentric phase. All right, that pause, amortization, and then concentrically exploding up. All right, once I turn, I'm going to try to do my reps as quickly as possible until I get to 10. I will now demonstrate the set of 10, trying to get to those 10 reps with as minimal rest in between as possible. All right, second exercise I'm going to be doing with the boxes, or in my case the benches, are going to be box jumps. I'm going to do a set of 10 standard, then a set of 5 right, 5 leg, and then finishing out with laterals. All right, I'm going to start on top of the box, so I'm making a true plyometric, so it'll be the eccentric phase going down, that amortization when I'm landing. It's not going to be a full squat, almost a half squat, and then the concentric phase explosively going back up until I get to my set of 10. All right, I'm now going to demonstrate that set of 10. So eccentric, amortization, eccentric. And again, just trying to make that landing phase up into the concentric phase as quickly and explosive as you can. All right, my first variation for the boxes are going to be single leg box jumps, 5 on the right, 5 on the left. I'm not going to be using the boxes. That height right now for my athletic ability with the single legs is too much. So it is important to assess where your athletic ability is at and make modifications. So in my case, I'm going to be using the first stair wedge. My left leg is going to be bent behind me. All right, you might need to put an arm out or both arms out for additional support. And then I'm going to be starting up on that first step. So when I'm going down, that's going to be my eccentric phase. That landing or the pause is going to be the amortization phase, and then concentrically exploding back up. I'm going to do 5 on the right, and then a set of 5 on the left, 10 total. All right, I'm now going to demonstrate my set of 10. Then I'm going to switch, starting from on top of the box. All right, my last variation are going to be lateral box jumps. I'm going to start on top of the box. All right, dropping in with my right foot and my left foot, but leading with my right. All right, that's going to be the eccentric phase, that pause, amortization, and then I'm now jumping with my left leg leading on top of the box, dropping it down to the right side. I'm going to demonstrate to a set of 10. All right, the next modality is going to be the agility ladder. All right, I was unable to source one, so for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be using the floor tiles. All right, one square is going to be one box. I'm going to be doing 3 one-step variations, and then the second exercise will be 3 two-step variations. All right, the first agility ladder drill, I'm going to be taking 10 steps going forwards. All right, one of my feet, let's just say right, will be in that first box, then left, then right. All right, as I'm doing that, I'm swinging with the opposite arm, and then I'm going to be putting some speed to this. It should be quick and explosive. So for the 10, I'm going to be going forward. So 1, 2. All right, that's my first one. All right, my first variation, I'm going to be going laterally. All right, one foot is going to be in each box. My arms will still swing, but I'm trying to make this quick and explosive as possible. The last variation, I will be now going backwards with it, still keeping one foot in each box with that arm swing, trying to make it as quick and explosive as possible. All right, the second exercise, I'm going to be doing the same movement patterns, but with 2 steps. First one going forward, then laterally getting 2 of my feet in each box, and then going backwards with 2 steps. All right, still trying to make these as quick and explosive as possible. All right, first one going forward, getting 2 steps in each box, still trying to make this as quick and explosive as possible. All right, the second one going laterally, I'm gonna take my 2 steps in the first box and then diagonally take 2 steps in the second box and repeat all the way till I get to 10 repetitions. So starting out, 1, 2. All right, my last variation, I'm gonna be going backwards, still thinking both feet in each box before taking that back pedal till I get to 10. So the next modality are going to be battle ropes. All right, obviously these are not actual battle ropes, but for the purpose of this video, I'll be using jump rope to mimic the movement. All right, typically battle ropes would be between 30 and 40 feet long. The diameter of them would be much thicker, and then they would be ranging from 15 pounds all the way up to 50 pounds. First exercise I'm going to do with the battle ropes is going to be waves. I'm going to do single arm waves, double arm waves, and then lastly finish up alternating between single and double arm until I get to 10 repetitions. All right, starting with the single arm waves, I'm going to take an athletic stance. All right, knees slightly bent above the toes, and I'm leaning over my chest so it's in line with the knees and the feet. and then I'm going right and then left till I get to 10 repetitions. And then if these were actual battle ropes, they would be coming up and off of the ground, but just for the purpose of mimicking this with a jump rope, they're unable to do that. All right, next variation are gonna be double arm waves, starting in that same position, and then this time the right and the left arm are going together. And then again, typically these ropes would be bouncing up and off of the ground while doing the movement, but again, just mimicking them with the jump rope here. The last variation, you're gonna be starting out in that same athletic base. All right, once I'm ready to start here, I'm gonna go with the right arm, then at the same time, and then with my left arm till I get to 10 repetitions total. And then just like the other two, all right, ideally these ropes would be coming up and off the ground for every single one of those repetitions. All right, the next exercise are gonna be battle rope slams. All right, for these, I'm starting out with the double arm, so at the same time, I'm raising the rope up and above my head. As I do so, I'm getting up onto my toes. My heels are off the ground, but my feet do not leave. As I'm coming down slamming, all right, my ankles hit the ground. And then in this one, it looks like the rope will actually be able to make some contact with the floor. So demonstrating the first set of 10, going double arm. So above the head, slamming them down. All right, next variation, I'm gonna be doing single arm slams. So I'm still gonna be bringing the rope above my head, but I'm going right to left. As I'm going down, I'm still wanting my ankles to make contact with the ground at the same time. All right, I'm now gonna demonstrate my set of 10 slams, going right to left. All right, the last variation for the battle ropes, or in this case, jump ropes, is gonna be alternating between the double arm slam and then the single arm slam until I get to 10. So I'm gonna start out with the double, and then going right to left, double to left. And alternating until I get to 10. All right, the next modality is gonna be using medicine balls. All right, we're gonna be doing some plyometric passes. The first one are just gonna be chest passes. All right, so on these, as I'm catching it from my partner, that's gonna be the eccentric phase. All right, as I'm catching it towards my chest, that pause, that's gonna be the amortization phase. And then that concentric contraction as I'm pressing it back to my partner will get us through the 3 phases that are needed for a plyometric exercise. All right, now we're gonna do our set of 10, again, going through this plyometric movement. Go ahead. So as I'm catching it in, that's my eccentric phase, amortization, and then concentric as I'm pressing it out to my partner. And then just trying to make that pass explosive once bringing it towards the chest. Engaging the core a little bit while maintaining an upright position. But really just trying to make that movement explosive as possible while throwing it to your partner. Next variation are going to be overhead bounce passes to your partner. So you're going to start extending your arms behind your head, keeping those elbows straight, not pointed out. and then I'm gonna press my chest forward, hinging over the hips a little bit. I'm gonna slam the ball down diagonally so it bounces up to my partner, so whether they catch it at their chest or at their face, bring it up behind their head, and then explosively pressing it down back to their partner until we get to 10. All right, so starting, again, elbows pointing straight towards my partner, have that back foot, all right, diagonal with that left foot forward, and then pressing down. Partner catches at the chest, she brings it behind her head, back to me. Again, really putting some force into it, slamming it towards your partner. All right, watch your accuracy. Last one. All right, the last exercise for our med ball throws is gonna be the power drop. All right, my girlfriend is gonna be standing on the bench above me. All right, I'm gonna be laying supine on my back with my head close to the bench, with my arms extended and my shoulders slightly up off the ground. All right, as she's dropping the ball, I'm catching it as it's dropping. All right, bringing it quick down to my chest for that eccentric phase. That slight pause will be the amortization phase. And then I'm pressing it up for the concentric phase back to my partner. And then we're gonna do that for a total of 10 times. Biggest things are gonna be not to catch the ball too high, have it stop and then bring it. As I'm catching it, I'm explosively bringing it towards my chest in the eccentric phase, slight pause for the amortization, and explosively passing it back up on the concentric phase. So I'm in my starting position, supine on my back. My arms will be extended with the shoulders slightly off the ground. I'm gonna give my partner a signal that I'm ready. All right, I'm good. So eccentric phase, as I'm catching it, pressing down. Amortization phase is that pause, and then concentrically exploding back up, passing it to my partner. All right, the last 9 will be at full speed, so you see how quick that cycle should actually be. Go ahead. As I'm catching it, bringing it down to my chest quickly, having it explode up in that concentric phase. Last one. All right, with the power drop, it's super important that there's communication between you and the person that you're doing with. All right, obviously with dropping a medicine ball with additional height, there are those additional risk factors, so communication is key for whoever you are doing it with. All right, second exercise with the med balls are gonna be some trunk plyometrics. All right, the first one is gonna be the 45-degree sit and pass with the partner. So for this one, all right, I am gonna be in contact with the ground with my glutes and then my feet. All right, relax back in that 45-degree angle position with my arms extended. All right, again, that trunk is at that 45-degree angle, the abs are engaged. When the partner throws it to me, there's gonna be a slight bend in the elbows, but very slight for that eccentric phase. All right, the amortization will be that pause, and I'm gonna concentrically, explosively press the med ball back to my partner until we get to a set of 10. All right, so I'm starting with those feet planted. My trunk is at that 45-degree angle with my arms extended. All right, some common errors here are gonna be, once she does pass it to me, I'm rotating back in my hips and then throwing them forward. You're trying to maintain that 45-degree angle the entire time. All right, and then the other biggest point of concern would be making sure those feet stay on the ground and do not come off. Maintaining that 45-degree angle of support the entire way through for the set of 10. All right, for this one too, give your partner a signal when you're ready to go, which in this case I am. Slight bend, pressing out, the eccentric, amortization, concentrically passing it. Last one. And that's our set of 10. All right, the first variation are gonna be seated rotational med ball throws. Me and my partner, I'm gonna be seated laterally to them while they'll be standing. All right, I'm still gonna be in that same 45-degree trunk angled seated position. Only difference is my ankles would be on the ground, but not my toes. All right, again, common errors here are gonna be losing the point of contact with your feet or starting that rotation too late after catching the ball, bringing it down over your trunk and not maximizing the stretch shortening cycle. So as soon as you're catching it, you're going into your swing and then tossing it back to the partner. Again, we're gonna do 5 for the right side and then 5 for the left side. So we'll be switching spots after that first set of 5. Okay. All right, so again, partner being laterally to me on my side, I'm gonna be taking that 45-degree trunk position. Again, ankles on the ground, feet are off. All right, and take a little bit further space. Starting with the arms extended. All right, as soon as I catch it, I'm gonna rotate over my trunk, touch the ground, and then lightly toss it back to my partner. All right, the next 4 are gonna be at full speed. So as soon as I'm catching it, I'm starting that rotation over my torso while maintaining my 45-degree angle seated position. Trying to engage my core all the way through. Last one. All right, now that we've done the rotation from right to left, now I'm gonna be going left to right. So I'm gonna scoot over a little bit, switch spots with my partner. Again, communication is important here. I'm gonna give her a signal that I'm ready, and then I'm gonna do my other set of 5. All right, I'm gonna give her that signal that I'm ready, and then again, instead of going right to left, this time working my other side, going left to right. All right, I'm ready. Same like the other side, keeping my same body position. All right, having that rotation, but not moving my trunk while it's going. Last one. All right, the last exercise for trunk plyometrics are gonna be partner-assisted sit-up med ball throws. So the way these are plyometric, all right, partner is gonna lightly toss the ball. It's not gonna be a hard pass. All right, as I'm catching it, it's gonna be the eccentric phase. All right, as I'm going down on my sit-up, that's gonna be the amortization phase, but I really wanna limit the time that I'm pretty supine on my back. By the time I explode up, that's gonna be the concentric phase back to my partner. But I'm trying to make that action as quickly as possible to actually get the stretch shortening cycle benefits and actually making it a plyometric movement. Okay, I'm ready. More. I'm going to be started in that same 45-degree angle trunk position, maybe slightly further back, with my arms extended. My partner's going to lightly toss me the ball. As I'm bringing the ball towards my chest and my back towards the ground in an almost supine position, that's going to be the eccentric phase. All right. This position here, flat on the ground, that's going to be that pause, the amortization phase. And I'm going to be concentrically, explosively throwing the ball back out to my partner. All right. For the last 9, we're going to be going at full speed. Again, I'm trying to limit how much of a pause there actually is to make this a true plyometric exercise. So once I give her the signal, we're going to get going. All right. After doing 6 different modalities with a total of 12 exercises, I'm now going to be going into the cool down segment of today's training session. All right, similar to warm-up, I'm gonna be doing cycling. I'm gonna do 5 minutes total. The first 3 minutes, I'm gonna hold a steady pace. For the last 2 minutes, I'm just gonna create enough motion in my legs to keep everything moving, but those last 2 especially will be really slow pace. After that, I'm gonna finish up with some static stretches, hitting the parts of the body that we worked out in today's session. So again, for those first 3, I'm just gonna create a steady movement with the legs. Just nice and slow. Biggest goals for cool down, trying to bring the body back to homeostasis and allowing myself to do something that's not as intense as the workout, while still trying to maintain some of those same benefits that I got during it. Trying to de-elevate the heart rate from today's session. And then again, while still keeping blood moving to the working muscles. Focusing on the breath, nice slow inhales, slow and controlled exhale. Within this last minute here, just trying to keep that same controlled tempo before I start the last 2 minutes, which are really slow movements with the legs. All right, last 2 minutes here. I'm just gonna have enough force through my legs to keep the movement going, but I'm really not putting a lot of energy into it here. Really trying to focus on my breathing, trying to get my heart rate back down to almost resting. Maybe do some reflection on the workout that just was at hand. But you're trying to get your body and your mind out of that workout mindset mode and back down to homeostasis. Last minute here. Seconds. All right, and that concludes the first part of cool down. Now I'm gonna be moving on to some static stretches to end the workout. Okay, the first static stretch I'm gonna be doing is gonna be the seated lean back. My legs are gonna be straight in front of me with my ankles on the floor. My arms are gonna be behind me, all right, with my hands pointed to the wall back. And then I'm gonna lean into it and hold it here. This is good for your anterior deltoids as well as your pecs. I'm just gonna hold this position for 15 while reaching behind me with my arms. You can start to walk those arms a little bit further back while pressing your chest forward. Okay, the next static stretch is gonna be the cobra stretch. I'm gonna have my girlfriend demonstrate. She's gonna lie prone onto the floor with her hands in front of her chest, almost in a push-up position. All right, keeping the legs extended with the tops of her toes resting on the floor. All right, and then she's pressing her chest up, extending through the hands, and then she's gonna hold for 15 seconds while focusing on her breath. All right, this is really good for the abs, the pecs, and then ultimately her spine. Okay, the next static stretch is going to be the semi-straddle. So you're going to start with either the right or left foot forward extended, with your other foot going towards the pelvis, almost creating a triangle shape. All right, once she's here, she's going to reach with her arms to grab her foot, and then she's going to pull back on that foot and hold that side for 15 seconds. All right, it's going to again target the spine, her calf, and then her hamstrings as well. All right, she's gonna go ahead and switch. So now her other leg is extending straight, bringing the other foot towards the pelvis. Foot is flexed and she's pulling it in, and she's gonna hold this side for 15. All right, the last static stretch I'm gonna be doing is gonna be a lunge with a spinal twist. All right, same lunge position that I did throughout today's workout. All right, opposite hands are gonna be touching the ground, and then I'm twisting it up and holding this side for 15. This is gonna be good for the calf, hamstring, quads, as well as your pec, anterior deltoid, and then again your spine. Now I'm gonna take that upright position, opposite foot forward this time, opposite hand on the ground, and then twist. This concludes video project assignment number 2, where the focus was on quick, explosive movements as well as plyometrics. I hope I did a good job explaining on what the different explosive movements were and how to actually make an exercise plyometric, going through the stretch shortening cycle, talking about the eccentric phase, amortization phase, and then lastly the concentric phase. Thank you.